Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrita Naram Chava Narottama Devam Sarvatim Vasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vasudeva, the author. Today we are continuing our reading from the third canto, part 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are on text 5 today. So third canto, chapter 2, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna, and text 5. We'll start with the word for word. Kula ko bi na.
Kula ko ubina.
Sarvango. Munchan. Milad. Drisha. Sucha. Purnato. Laksitas. Tena. Sneha. Prasada. Sampluta. Line for line. Kula kobina sarvango. Munchan milad drisha sucha. Pornarto laksitas tena. Sneha prasada sampluta. Kulako bina sarvango. Munchan milad drisha sucha. Pornarto laksitas tena. Sneha prasada sampluta. Kula kobina sarvango. Muncha milad drisha sucha. Pornarto laksitas tena. Sneha prasada sampluta.
Ulakobina sarvango. Munchamila drisha sucha. Pornarto laksitas tena. Sneha prasara sampluta.
Ulakobina sarvango. Munchamila drisha sucha.
Pornato laksitas tena. Sneha prasara sampluta. Kulakobina sarvango. Munchamila drisha sucha. Pornato laksitas tena. Sneha prasada sampluta. Would anyone online like to recite? We'll go to the transliteration. Ulaka ubina, bodily changes of transcendental ecstasy.
Bodily changes of transcendental ecstasy.
Sarva anga, every part of the body.
Every part of the body.
Muncha, smearing.
Smearing.
Milat, opening. Drisha, by the eyes. Sucha, tears of grief. Purna arthaha, complete achievement. Laksita, thus observed. Tena, by Vidura. Sneha parasara, extensive love. Sampluta, thoroughly assimilated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. It was so observed by Vidura that Uddhava had all the transcendental bodily changes due to total ecstasy, and he was trying to wipe away tears of separation from his eyes. Thus, Vidura could understand that Uddhava had completely assimilated extensive love for the Lord. Purport. The symptoms of the highest order of devotional life were observed by Vidura, an experienced devotee of the Lord, and he confirmed Uddhava's perfectional stage of love of Godhead. Ecstatic bodily changes are manifested from the spiritual plane and are not artificial expressions developed by practice. There are three different stages of development in devotional service. The first stage is that of following the regulative principles prescribed in the codes of devotional service. The second stage is that of assimilation and realization of the steady condition of devotional service. And the last stage is that of ecstasy symptomized by transcendental bodily expressions. The 9 different modes of devotional service, such as hearing, chanting, and remembering, are the beginning of process. By regular hearing of the glories and pastimes of the Lord, the impurities in the student's heart begins to be washed off. The more one is cleansed of impurities, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. Gradually, the activities take the forms of steadiness, firm faith, taste, realization, and assimilation, one after another. These different stages of gradual development increase love of God to the highest stage. And in the highest stage, there are still more symptoms, such as affection, anger, and attachment, gradually rising in the exceptional case to the Mahabhav stage, which is generally not possible for the living entities. All these were manifested by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the personification of love of God. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, the chief disciple of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these transcendental symptoms displayed by pure devotees like Uddhava are systematically described. We have written a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu entitled The Nectar of Devotion, and one may consult this book for more detailed information on the science of devotional service. So we're going to recite some more mantras to invoke auspiciousness, the mantras found at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Aganya Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshorum Miletam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaya Dadati Swabhanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Para Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakant Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamame Hare Priye Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prakadine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatade Shatari. Hare Krishna. So before I begin talking, I just want to ask the blessings of all the devotees here in person, online, on the altar, just the words on my mouth. The words that come out of my mouth are representing the authority. And I want us to talk a little bit about taxes, because Monday in the United States is a national holiday, do our tax day. And I have an engineering degree. It's very difficult to figure out how to do taxes. David has a PhD, so maybe he had a bit of a better, easier time doing taxes. But yeah. And so this leads me to like, talking about depression a little bit. So in the United States, in this highly civilized, highly advanced society, we are the number 2 highest rates of depression in the world. And and I was like reflecting on this a little bit, and then like bringing it back to Srila Prabhupada, like in his pranam mantra. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prakadine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatade Shattarine. So Nirvisesa from impersonalism, Sunyavadi is from voidism, and Tarine is delivering. So his mission from his spiritual master was to deliver the Western countries, which are filled with voidism and impersonalism. And I'm just making the correlation to like the high rates of depression, is we don't really have a spiritual personal foundation or relationship of bhakti, which is the means of human existence, as Srila Prabhupada constantly says, is like the purpose of human life is self-realization, is developing love of God. And and then I wanted to go to like this idea of a spiritual tax. This idea of a spiritual tax. So Krishna, actually, there is a spiritual tax given to us in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's chapter 9, text 27. Yad karosi yad asnasi yad juhosi dadasi yad tapasi yasi ganteya tad kuruswa mad arpanam. And it goes, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering to me. So this is Krishna's tax to us, and it's everything, 100% of everything. Well, first, everything belongs to Krishna, and backing up a little bit in the previous text, it's if one offers me, Krishna is speaking, if one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, where is it? Above all, so talking about offerings, above all, the offering should be made with an attitude of love. Krishna has no need of food, since he already possesses everything that be, yet he will accept the offering of one who desires to please him in that way. The important element in preparation, in serving, and in offering is to act with love for Krishna. And then what do we receive if we offer everything? If we pay this tax of everything, of all of our mind, our thoughts, our words, and our body, our actions. So text 28. In this way, you'll be freed from all reaction to good and evil deeds. And by this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. And this is the technical term, yukta viraga, one who acts, one who gives everything in the service of Krishna. There's so much just there. And it's part of this process, which is so beautifully given to us, as it starts from subtle to gross. So by chanting, I'm recalling the nectar of instruction, the first Vacho Vegam, control the tongue. And yeah, so, and even more so, beginning to control the thoughts by constantly absorbed in Krishna's name, form, pastimes, and yeah, Shravanam, hearing. I'm remembering right here. So by regular hearing of the glories and pastimes of the Lord, the impurities in the student's heart begin to be washed off. Cheto Darpana Marjana. Lord Chaitanya's prayer is that by this process, as we start to cleanse the mirror of the heart, and yeah, and then yeah, talking a little bit about, I want to talk about time as well, is yeah, so the different yugas. So Satya Yuga is 1.72 million years, Treta 1.296 million years, Dwarpa Yuga is 864,000, Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. And then one of these cycles is called a Maha Yuga or a Divya Yuga. And 1,000 cycles is one day of Brahma. So why am I bringing up like these time scales? It's because Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Lord Chaitanya appear once in the day of Brahma. And that's about, I think, 8.6 billion years. A lot of math there. But anyways, my understanding from this is one time in a day/night of Brahma, that this, that Krishna comes down as an avatar, that the Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken and shared as his echo. And then Lord Chaitanya, again, Krishna, who it's not an incarnation, it is Krishna, comes down in mood of Radharani to enact his pastimes and to bring the Sankirtan movement. So I just like have been really meditating and reflecting on like how rare this is, like this one out of 8.6 billion years, like one period of time. And then this idea of achinta, inconceivable. Like it's first off, like, I mean, this body's 26, thinking when I'm 36 or thinking about being 30, that's inconceivable. That's like a few years ahead. And then we're talking billions, millions and billions of years. That's even more inconceivable. And then, yeah, I wanted to bring up this this Prabhupada pastime that I heard about from a book by Sarupa Dasa Goswami. So it was in May 1972. Srila Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and he invited like a lot of the leaders of his movement to like for a discussion into his garden. And this I'm about to read a quote that's account from someone named Jagadish. So Srila Prabhupada had all the GBC come to LA, and some received sannyas that day. And we discussed reinforcing preaching. So all the GBC men were sitting there. And Srila Prabhupada looks us over and he said, "Are you all convinced?" Jagadish writes, "We just sat there. Nobody said anything for 2 minutes. It was one of the heaviest moments of my life." Srila Prabhupada was challenging us. Continues writing, Srila Prabhupada said, "As far as I'm concerned, I'm convinced. Therefore, I'm pushing on. I'm pushing on because it is fact, not fiction. That much I'm personally convinced. So when someone says you believe, I say no, it is fact. You must show your conviction by preaching and facing opposing elements. But are you convinced? If you're not convinced, that's not good for me. The first thing is enthusiasm. You have to work more than me. Anyone who has life, he can preach." End of quote. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada is telling us to work more than him. And Krishna is giving us the way, or Krishna is giving us like the tax that he's offering, which is everything. And Srila Prabhupada is giving like the the means. So yeah, the process, I mean, the overall message of the Bhagavad Gita is to surrender. This is from the first page of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says that the Bhagavad Gita, the message is surrender unto Krishna. Forget everything, forget all, religiosity, all nationalism, everything, all bodily identifications, and just surrender unto me. And then furthermore, there's 6 processes of surrender. Accepting things that are favorable for devotional service, rejecting things that, so that now this is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya, the 6 stages of surrender, 6 processes of surrender. Accept the things that are favorable for devotional service, reject that which is unfavorable. Pull it up, or I know you know it, someone, what's number 3? The 6 stages of devotional service.
Accepting Krishna as the maintainer.
Accepting Krishna as the maintainer, protector,
humility,
find yourself humility. Yeah.
offering Krishna's one's very self.
Say that last time.
Offering Krishna one's very self.
Oh, offering Krishna's one very self. Okay, and something about not having any interest different from Krishna, some other, but yeah, it's like. Let me go back to this. So yeah, so Srila Prabhupada, in the following this parampara, following the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya, gives us the codes of devotional service. And in this purport, he's talking about the 3 different stages of development in devotional service. The first stage is that of following the regulative principles described in the codes of devotional service. And what I'm hearing from that is like following the 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds. And then, just reflecting like where I'm at is like, another thing that I hear a lot is like the two main points. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. And japa is like that time for like really like full one-on-one. This is my personal relationship with Krishna, and I'm focusing on chanting and hearing. And I'll say that like very often, probably 99% of the time, I'll chant 16 rounds and I won't think once of Krishna. Like I'm just so absorbed in me. Even today, I was so absorbed in giving class, like, oh, I'm going to give this class. So there's that. And like in this, it talks about this idea of gradually. The more one is cleansed of impurities, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. So gradually the activities, we start to become more and more focused. And sometimes we're thinking of Krishna, and then more and more we're thinking of Krishna. And then eventually, supposedly, we will have that 24/7 unalloyed, causeless devotional service and remembrance of Krishna. And then we will be paying his tax, which is offering everything to him. And and then speaking a little bit about, just like the rarity that we have, this one area, one period of time in Brahma's day, out of all the yugas that Lord Krishna, that the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that Lord Sri Chaitanya manifest. And just by hearing and chanting, like naturally, gradually, like this process of bhakti, like starts to develop, the seed starts to blossom, the natural love that we have. And one other thing that was like really striking to me about just like how blessed I feel about this is text 4 of the Adi Lila. Anarpita charam charat karunya ya va tirna kalo samarpitum unato valarasam swabhakti sriyam hari purata sundara duki kadamba sandipita Sara hridaye khandare spurato vasachi nandana. just read part of it. So it's talking about, I'll read the whole thing. May that Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Dev, be transcendently situated in the innermost chamber of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant spiritual knowledge of the mellow taste of his service. So no other incarnation has ever offered this opportunity that we have of this mellow of, where is it? Madhura? Forgot.
Madhurya Ras.
Madhurya Ras. Yeah, I don't have any realization about that, but apparently it's a mellow that we have access to by entering into Sri Chaitanya's pastimes. And what are his pastimes? Please, someone from the audience, what can we do to spread the Sankirtan movement? Dance, okay. Sing. Feast. Prasad distribution, yeah. Prasad consumption, yeah. Discussing philosophy like this. What is the difficulty of all that? Quoting Srila Prabhupada. Singing and dancing and eating. And through this process, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, the heart begins to become cleansed. Yeah, like I'll share I'll share a few funny personal stories that I was remembering. Yeah, so like my process was very much like first was being very offensive to Srila Prabhupada and to the Hare Krishna devotees. But I was thinking about them, so I received some purification. It's from my understanding, just by thinking about them. It just causes mercy. And then I ate 1,000 plates of prasadam. And then from there, I started trying this kirtan thing, like singing and dancing. And then after that, I tried this meditation thing of japa. And then I started reading. And I'm recalled like a few summers ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I worked at a kids' summer camp, and there was a kid. And at this point, I was like into like an impersonalist meditation, like just watching my breath, sitting for 10 minutes. And it was nice. And it wasn't the goal. I'm understanding it's not the goal. But anyways, this kid, he asked me, he said, he was like 16 or 17. He said, Nico, what happened first? Did you grow out your hair? Did you become vegetarian? Or did you start meditating? Right? Very, very important, question. And I had to think about it. It's like, what of those happened first? And so it was growing out the hair that happened first. And then somehow like being a little like a bit of a hippie and like going against the norms, like, oh, I'm going to be a guy, grow out my hair. And then that led me to like becoming vegetarian. And then that led me to meditating. And now what I'm getting at is, I heard this other really great story. That's kind of like a joke that I came up with, or that I find it funny. So it's like, what is the difference between a yogi and a hippie? And this following story will demonstrate that. So my friend Ariella, she's like a Thai massage like expert, and she lived in India for many years, for like maybe 5 years. But she would go to Rishikesh, and she said she would just like hike up and go into like these caves. And one time she went into a cave, and there was this yogi meditating, and there was a dead body on the floor, or what looked like a dead body on the floor. And she was like, dude, what are you doing with the dead body? And he's like, this is my guru. He is in samadhi. I'm waiting for him to come back. And she was rather, perplexed. But then she goes, why are you wearing a watch? And he says, I'm a yogi, not a hippie. And my understanding of that is like, like this difference, this distinction between living for the moment and living in the moment. And, even in this purport, he talks about like regulating our activities. So this guy, he's in the cave in the Himalayas, his guru's in samadhi, and he's still wearing a watch. And where was I going with that?
In the moment, for the moment.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, dear God. Yeah, so in the moment and for the moment, living in the moment. Like as a hippie, it's just like there's no time, and like, oh, I'm free to do whatever I want. Anything that comes to me, like I live this life. So anything that's happening is like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like whether it's indulging in this drug or this sexual misconduct, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just living it. I'm living in the moment. I'm just gonna be very whimsical and like float around. And then living for the moment is, yeah, being committed. Like for me, it's like being committed to the purpose of life, which the Prabhupada has given us out of 8,400,000 different species. Like, you know, at the time of death, if I think of a lizard, I could become incarnated as a lizard the next life. So right now, I don't want that. No, please. So pretty much, I'm in this body, and I have a chance, like in this human birth, to make real progress, like in the meaning of life, which is cleansing the mirror of our heart, you know, turning face to face with who we are as spiritual beings, having a human experience, and ultimately developing love of Godhead, of Shri Krishna. So
I have hair and watch.
Yeah.
And well said.
Yeah, you have hair and watch. Yeah. So then yeah, I want to continue this. We were talking about Rishikesh a little bit. I spent time like practicing like as a yogi, like as an impersonalist yogi, like studying like the tantras. And because we're talking about Rishikesh a little bit, yeah, Swami Shivananda, he's like a famous yogi, and he has like hatha yoga centers all over the world, and like nothing against him, like I'm super grateful. Like it was part of purification. But similarly, as I went from, you know, hippie to vegetarian to yogi, it like keeps going. And like Srila Prabhupada gives and Krishna the different levels of realization, like the impersonalist Brahma Jyoti, and then realizing the Paramatma in the heart, and then finally Bhagavan realization. And then my understanding is like the Brahma Jyoti is actually a really high level of realization, where you don't have any more lamentation or any more hankering after material existence. So it is a very high level of realization. And then, yeah, just sharing a little bit personally, like this Swami Shivananda, like I spent, 4 months at one of his kind of offshoot ashrams in South India. And like we were staring at like crystal balls, and like there's very complicated like meditations, and just, I don't know, like I'm looking back and I'm kind of like, yeah, there was purification. And it was just like very austere, and like not like really not developing love of God. Like that's like my own personal experience. Like, yeah, some purification, but also like then I came, like before I really started chanting and getting into this. So I like Swami Shivananda, like he's cool, he actually tells the story. Like I heard this, he says, japa of the Maha Mantra. And he gives the story of Narada going to Brahma. I'll read it because I think it's pretty nice. So at the end of Dwapara Yuga, Narada went to Brahma and addressed him thus: "O Lord, how shall I, roaming all over the earth, be able to cross Kali?" To which Brahma thus replied: "Well asked. Hearken to that which all sutras, all shrutis, the Vedas keep secret and hidden, through which one may cross the samsara of Kali. He shakes off the evil effects of Kali through the mere uttering of the name of the Lord Narayan, who is the primeval Purusha." Again, Narada asked Brahma, "What is the name?" To which Hiranyagarbha thus replied. The words are, and he gives the Maha Mantra: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Here, these 16 names are destructive of the evil effects of Kali. No better means than this is to be seen in all the Vedas. These 16 names destroy the avarana of jiva surrounded by this. So Narada asked, "O Lord, what are the rules to be absorbed with reference to it?" To which Brahman replied that there are no rules for it. Whosoever in a pure or impure state utters these always attains the same world of, or proximity with, the same form of absorption into the Supreme Lord. And anyways, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because Srila Prabhupada often will talk about what's his name? Shankaracharya, who is like a famous like Mayavadi, like impersonalist philosopher. And he'll often reference Shankaracharya, saying that like even Shankaracharya says that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'm kind of taking that, even Swami Shivananda, there's hundreds of centers over the world where they're doing Hatha Yoga and practicing various meditations, says to chant the names of Hare Krishna. And then, yeah, going a little bit to what I was also reminded of in this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam is that he was trying to wipe away tears of separation from his eyes. So yeah, the tears of separation, and I'm going to refer to Shiksashtakam now, which is the 8. So in Chaitanya Charit Amrita, it stated that, yeah, in the first few verses, like Radha and Krishna are one in their identity. Previously, they separated themselves. Now together, they've come again as Lord Chaitanya. So this is Lord Krishna in the mood of his topmost devotee, Srimata Radharani. And yeah, bringing the Sankirtan movement 500 years ago, which is going to last apparently for the next 9,500 years. About 10,000 years, we're in this golden age of Lord Chaitanya Prabhu's causeless mercy. Yeah, like we didn't necessarily do anything to deserve this, but the mercy is just there, coming through this parampara, through Srila Prabhupada as the current link, and we can just open ourselves up to it and receive this causeless mercy. Anyway, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was a famous scholar and preacher, but he only wrote down 6 verses that I referred to a little bit. 8 verses. Sorry, thank you for the question. And yeah, so in this, he was talking about his tears of separation, Uddhava's tears of separation. And then, yeah, I'll just like kind of briefly talk about Shiksashtakam. So yeah, the glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious for. That's the first text. And then I'll go to the third text because we were talking about Krishna's tax. And in the third text, Trinad api suni chena taror api sahisnuna Amanina Mahamana Nena Kirtana Sada Hari. Kirtana Sada Hari. So always chanting the holy names of the Lord constantly. That's our goal. And yeah, he gives the formula. We need to be in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. We must be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. And we should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, we can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And then the last thing I'll go to is, yeah, like in the 7th text, you know, he talks about this. Chaitanya is praying in this mood of Radharani. Feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. So yeah, that mood of separation that Uddhava is presenting here. And yeah, I'll just read, I read this already, but I'll read it one more time from the purport for today, and also seen throughout Srila Prabhupada's teachings very often. By regular hearing of the glories and pastimes of the Lord, the impurities in the student's heart begin to be washed off. The more one is cleansed of impurities, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. So at this time, I'll welcome any comments, questions, corrections. Thank you so much for being here. Hare Krishna.
I have a question.
Yes, Casey.
You were sharing about, or you were reading what Prabhupada said, and I think it was about and I just wanted to hear it again. That was my question. That like he said there was two things that happened. Like when he was talking to the devotees, it was heavy. He asked, "Are you convinced?" And then he said, "These are the two things." And I just wanted to hear that again.
Perfect. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I'm convinced. Therefore, I'm pushing on. I'm pushing on because it is fact, not fiction. It's the last line. Okay, right here it goes. It is fact. You must show your conviction by preaching and facing opposing elements. But are you convinced? That was it?
Yeah, preaching and facing opposing elements. That part really stuck out to me. The facing opposing elements, especially. Yeah, I don't know if anybody just wants to speak more about that, about what that means, or a realization around that, or experience around that. I just want to hear more.
Hey Krishna, would anyone like to share about facing opposing elements?
Well, thanks. Thank you, Bhakta Nico, for reading that excerpt. It's heavy pastime of the leaders of the organization and how I got them together.
Having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I'll speak up. It's like, are you convinced? I mean, it's so, and what you read, like Prabhupada said, like, yeah, it's not like I believe this, right? Like I know this, like I know Krishna is this person of Godhead. So everyone's kind of like, what do we do there? Like, so, right. So I don't know, in this facing opposing, well, it seems to me those two things go together. Of course, preach tends to be like a, politically incorrect word, but we're talking about share. Anyone who has something good, I want to share. So it's very understandable. And so if we're sharing, then it'll be like people inspired to receive and discuss, and then we'll probably even, you can see like Srila Prabhupada, or like those who really are pure, Jesus or Srila Prabhupada. So they're sharing love of God, the philosophy, the experience, and they faced opposing elements and they were pure. So of course, if people are reactive, we can look at what it is about me. How am I impure? How am I provoking that with my false ego? Still, even if we are pure, then this bhakti yoga process, Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada gave it, with careful discretion and without compromise. It's very threatening. It's very threatening. It's very threatening to like one's way of life. And the basic culture and the basic society, it'll be very threatening for some people, for many people. Some might react with hostility. My parents kidnapped me. Your parents aren't too happy about your choices like that. You're trying your best to explain, but not just parents. Sometimes they just the regulative principles. The regulative principles threatens the whole economic basis of society, right? Prabhupada talks about sometimes like there are so many businesses and corporations, international ventures that are based on that are based on violations of the regulative principles. So it's just like it's going to be very threatening. And so so like to have that, let's call it that warrior spirit. And of course, in the line of Lord Chaitanya, we're not into killing the bodies, but but transforming the demoniac mentality into a devotional mentality, starting with ourselves. So declare war on Maya. Right? Maya is a great devotee, and she's one devotee we can declare war on. Yeah. Yeah, and to,
Special rasa with us.
yeah, it's a special rasa. So, it's one thing and we're just like la di da, yeah, no, I like change and I like this, and that's nice, any kind of contact with Krishna consciousness. I appreciated, Nico, you gave your personal progression, starting with innocent offenses. I can certainly relate to that, and then right, okay, and then okay, Prashadam, chanting, and then you're getting addicted to Prabhupada's books. Now it's hopeless for you. Yeah. So right. So yeah. So okay. But then okay, I want to share this. Like I want to relieve some of the burden of Srila Prabhupada. I want to relieve some of the burden of Srila Lord Chaitanya. So I'm committed to share this and be a stand for Krishna conscious transformation of heart, for giving bhakti yoga full commitment. So we're going to attract. We're going to face opposition, obstacles. So to be ready to get into battle mode against Maya's forces, which can, of course, take the form of my own mind and senses first, and then take the form of people around, and people think we're crazy, and people feel threatened, and like that. So so to really make a difference in the world, and really putting the one in front of the zeros with Krishna consciousness, God consciousness in a more generic term, but Krishna consciousness, with that. So it requires being prepared to get in the trenches. Hare Krishna.
What comes to me about the opposing elements is Jesus preaching when he's on the mountain. Is it a hill or a mountain? I don't know. I only read it in Czech language. So he's preaching and he says, I'm not bringing peace, I'm bringing war. War between the mother and daughter, and between father and son, and like really, because that's what's happening, like in your family, or in my family for sure too. So that's like kind of like everything, including the very own mind, feels so against the process of Krishna consciousness. And I was reading a book when I was 18. It was called Quo Vadis Domine. Maybe some of you know it. It's like it's the early Christianity. Like maybe Quo Vadis Domine. It's in Latin. Okay. The name of the book is in Latin, and it means where are you going, sir? Where are you going, sir? And I think of it so often, like on Sankirtan, the people are always like, I'm rushing. I'm like, where are you? Where are you going? But the book is about the early generations of Christians, like I think like maybe like the second or third generation after Christ, and it's in Rome, and they get like all of them get like crucified and burned alive and like that, and the movement was like really like people were like so enthusiastic to join. It was like when Hare Krishna started, it was just like so pure, and they were so like attracted. And then they knew they're like risking their life to join, but they were still doing it. It's really fascinating book. I think I will go back to it again. Because when I was 18, I wasn't so much interested in these topics, but it was fascinating. So anyway, the opposing elements, like it's really funny because like, okay, so they were like facing to be crucified. Like if I start to practice this, I might get crucified or burned alive or something. And I'm like, well, if I start to practice, maybe my parents will be angry at me. So I better don't. Just like
Well, that was very good. Thank you for sharing. I know Mother Malini had something. Is there anyone else that has something to share?
All I do is face opposing elements, but it's my own mind, and so I don't think, not in the context of preaching, but so it's like mundane kind of opposing forces. So it's like a more elevated stance, like face opposing forces in preaching. It's definitely something to strive for, rather than not just everyday opposing forces. So that's opposing forces. Oh my God, everything is opposing. Everything is opposing forces. So that's my inspiration, is to take on bigger, more substantial opposing forces.
Yeah, we are. There's a lot of opposing forces internally and externally, and I'm really resonating with what Latini was sharing. Yeah, like these early Christians that were being crucified and killed, and they were still excited, like they're willing to put their life on the line. And I'm here like, I don't want my mom to be worried about me. Like I don't want my family to think I'm crazy. And like that's like my concern, and that feels rather small and minimum compared to like people who are really sincere. So thank you, that's inspiring.
Yeah, the last verse of chapter 4 in Bhagavad Gita. It says like, yes, the doubts that have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by weapon of knowledge. Therefore, armed with yoga, O Arjuna, stand and fight. It's the 5 verse.
So stand with the torch of knowledge and fight. Or what was it? Stand with the weapon of knowledge?
Armed with the weapon of knowledge.
Armed with the weapon of knowledge.
Armed with yoga, stand and fight.
Yeah.
Stand, it's a very military analogy.
The weapon of knowledge will like destroy
The
doubts.
ignorance, yeah. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. Hare Krishna Bhagavat. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
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 Thank you for your presence and participation.
Thank you, Bhakta Nico.
Bhakta Nico, Krishna, bless us.
Thank you.